Hi, I'm Lindsay Wallace, Director of Strategic Projects and Design Services at Main Street America. The Main Street approach offers a practical, adaptable framework for commercial district transformation through community-based revitalization initiatives that are easily tailored to local conditions. The Main Street approach helps communities get started with revitalization and then grows with them as they adapt over time. The 4 points are a framework for addressing and considering the essential components of a thriving commercial district. While each point is important individually, the most successful Main Street communities are those that have a balanced approach to the 4 points, with each receiving an equal amount of attention to realize the unified community vision. This video will explore design in more detail to provide you with an introduction to how it's relevant and applicable to your downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts. Design supports a community's transformation by enhancing the physical and visual assets that set the commercial district apart. Further, design creates an inviting, inclusive atmosphere, celebrates historic character and culture, and fosters accessible, people-centered public spaces. I'll start with some overarching concepts of design, then focus on the day-to-day and advocacy and policy considerations Main Street directors need to keep at the top of mind regarding design in their districts. Design covers far more than just historic buildings, though of course the built environment is key to the economic, environmental, and social sustainability of a commercial district. Design certainly focuses on buildings and historic preservation, specifically historic building maintenance and repair, architectural assistance, and design regulation and review. This point also focuses on the broader physical environment of the district, including signage and wayfinding, public spaces, streetscapes, parks or natural amenities, and infrastructure. We'll examine the day-to-day consideration of these in a moment. But as a final note on the overall point, design is about making sure everyone in your community can access the physical spaces in your district and has a say in how it is used. It's about protecting historic properties and celebrating culture while allowing new compatible development. It's about adapting physical space for people to engage with safely, connecting local building owners with resources, experts, and tools, connecting with small-scale developers on best practices for commercial district real estate and property development. It's about building partnerships with other leaders working on your district, like your state historic preservation offices, local preservation commissions, university departments, and departments of public works, transportation, zoning, parks and recreation, and more. Now on to day-to-day considerations. So Main Street leaders don't need to be professional design experts, architects, or preservationists to be knowledgeable about the point of design, but basic understanding of several key concepts can help local leaders to provide solutions and resources and to advocate for best practices. Directors should know whether their district is listed in the local, state, or national registers of historic places. And beyond that, local leaders should be familiar with what those levels of designation mean for the built environment. For example, National Register listing opens up federal funding possibilities, as well as storytelling opportunities about the history and the culture of the district. And for another example, local register listing could mean architectural review, whereas listing in the National Register does not, unless a project is receiving federal funding. Storefront guidelines and facade glossary. So directors do not need to be experts in architectural terminology or design, but having a basic understanding and cheat sheets at the office of elements of a facade and best practices for storefronts is key to communication with business owners and to the local preservation commission, if you have one. Signage and wayfinding. These are key to the experience residents and visitors have in your district. They create visual cohesion, but they also make stores, parks, and amenities more accessible. Also key is that wayfinding systems can be expensive, so local leaders and communities without those systems should first seek ways to iterate and be creative with signage so that they can test approaches before spending a lot of money. Alleys and rear entrances. Don't forget about these when you're thinking of the district's physical environment. Alleys can be activated public spaces and connectors in the district, and rear entrances are often the more physically accessible entrances for people using wheelchairs or strollers, so make sure there is clear signage indicating that. They're also critical during times of construction, and so present the need for visual interest and guiding signage. Public art is critical to the overall feel and design of the district and offers opportunities for local job creation for artists, community engagement opportunities like paint-by-number murals, and they can be iterative or semi-permanent. Streetscapes. As placemaking pioneers at the Project for Public Spaces have said time and time again, streets are places. It's critical that the Main Street leaders consider the various elements of streetscapes that affect the health and safety of your community, like road diets, bike lanes, and multimodal infrastructure, traffic calming, and audio and visual crosswalk cues, and more. Local leaders know this well. Parking is always a top issue for community members, but Main Street directors must consider the value of a parking space versus the value of what it takes away. Leaders can help demonstrate reality versus perception through parking studies and testing parklet activation. Public improvements in infrastructure. These are perhaps the less exciting and sometimes even less visual aspects, but they provide opportunities for cohesive branding of the district and creative installations of basic infrastructure. We've already established that Main Street leaders don't need to be design professionals to be effective, and this is true even with design advocacy and policy. Since many of the projects and initiatives that affect a district's quality design are actually planned and implemented by other departments or entities, Main Street leaders need to be aware of specific concepts and topics so they can collaborate for a seat at the decision-making table. Historic buildings, sidewalk configurations, under-maintained plantings, and ground materials like bricks and cobblestones often make stores and public spaces in Main Street districts inaccessible for people with disabilities. While Main Street directors need not be experts in adaptive design, they can play a role in advocating for more accessible design solutions, from directional signage to sidewalk maintenance, to accessible entrances, to fully constructed ramps. If you've been with Main Street long enough, you've probably heard the oft-quoted, "The greenest building is the one that is already built." And indeed, the environmental benefits of older and historic buildings and walkable districts have been and still are demonstrated through various research outputs. In addition, road diets, infrastructure, and green spaces all present additional opportunities for Main Streets to be more environmentally sustainable. You don't need to be a contractor to encourage building owners to maintain and repair their properties, because deferred maintenance leads to a loss of improvement value. It also leads to the need for usually costly and large-scale improvements. In addition, building condition affects perceptions of business quality. If your district doesn't have design guidelines that cover your district's built environment, you should advocate for and be involved in the creation of these. While they can be used to regulate construction scopes of work, they can also help with advocating against teardowns and for compatible infill, providing guidance and potentially incentives for buildings and business owners on best practices, but also tiered solutions for consistent maintenance. They can help with incorporating energy efficiency standards and guidance for existing and new construction. Main Street directors should be a part of conversations regarding building teardowns. In order to do that, it is important to have a basic understanding of incentives and policy tools that can help support preservation efforts or encourage property owners to take care of their properties. Examples include design guidelines, minimum maintenance ordinances, financial incentives for maintenance issues or code compliance, flexibility in zoning regulations if a building owner invests in capital improvements, or demolition by neglect ordinances. Similarly, Main Street leaders should be advocates for compatible infill. When a new building is planned for a lot in the district, Main Street leaders should get involved in conversations about the building's design, its massing, height, and energy efficiency requirements. So zoning regulates the types of land uses and the form of development allowed within a defined area. This is often run through the city's planning department, and it is an active element of your district, physically shaping downtown. So how do we pay for this? How do we get this done? In our existing design-focused guides and in our Getting Started guide that will supplement this video, we will explore specific agencies, organizations, funds, and tools that exist to support the accomplishment of the work I've described so far. While the point of design can be thought of and addressed as we've discussed in this video, there are plenty of ways that it interacts with the other 3 points. Each point is essential, but the 4 points work best when they're used in relationship and tandem to one another. For example, design can play an important role in economic vitality by creating place factors or physical improvements that support an entrepreneurial ecosystem. In terms of organization, design can create excellent opportunities for partnerships or volunteer pools, while for promotions, design can contribute unique assets that set the district apart and tell a story about its culture. Now that you have a foundational understanding of design, you may be wondering where to start in this approach. While there's a lot that can be done, here are 3 simple next steps you can undertake to get started in addressing design in your Main Street. First, build relationships with your local leaders in charge of the district's built environment and with your State Historic Preservation Office. Second, create a baseline physical environment survey of your district. documenting existing conditions and needs for building maintenance and repair, accessibility, streetscapes, and public spaces and infrastructure. And third, compile a library of design-focused tools, resources, and best practices that you can easily share with your district stakeholders, making you the hub and connector for design-related questions. If you're interested in learning more about the Main Street approach, be sure to check out the other videos in our Main Street Foundation series to learn more about how each of the 4 points contributes to creating and supporting a thriving downtown or neighborhood commercial district. You can also visit our website at mainstreet.org to find more resources, access additional tools, and learn about our membership and grant opportunities. There, you can reach out to our program services or to the Main Street America Institute for greater engagement with the Main Street approach.